Velkommen alle sammen. Today we are continuing the series on the 6 gifts that the gods received from the dwarves early on in the mythology. I already did videos on the 3 gifts that the gods received from the dwarves, Sindri and Brøkker, but before that, the gods received 3 gifts from the dwarves called the Sons of Ivaldi. And today we are speaking about Skidbladnir, Freyr's ship, the massive ship that could hold all the gods and also be folded up so small that it could fit into one's own pocket. Did our ancestors believe all this nonsense? Well, let's take a look. As always, we look at the translation first. So Skidbladnir, translated from Old Norse, just means assembled from thin pieces of wood. It's also translated sometimes as wood that moves like leaves or leaf like wood. So either way, it reflects a very thin, flexible type of wood put together, which is of course a kenning or metaphor like everything else in our myths. So I'll get into what that means in just a minute, but on to the attestations next. Skidbladnir is mentioned quite a few times. First, and the most detailed descriptions of it comes in the Prose Edda, and quite a few different places, but all of the accounts go over the story we know. That Loki cuts off Siv's hair, and then Siv's husband Thor gets pissed off, of course, and threatens Loki, so then he goes to the Sons of Ivaldi and gets them to make some new hair for Siv, and also they make Gungnir and Skidbladnir, and they give them all to the gods at the same time. And here it says that Skidbladnir is the best of all ships, and it was given to Freyr, but it has the room to fit all the gods. But it is also, when it is not needed, it can be able to be folded up small enough to fit into one's pocket. Also, it mentions the Prose Edda that it always has favorable winds, and when it is ready, it always go where it needs to go. So I always mention this, but we can't get caught up too much in the small details of the Prose Edda because this was written 200 years after pagan times. And we see many examples of small details either added or completely altered from the original myths told in pagan times. So yeah, the storylines in the Prose Edda are good, but the small details we can't always get hung up on. So what I'm going to say here, this is the only original attestation of Skidbladnir that we have. And it comes in the Poetic Edda poem Grimnir, which was composed in pagan times, of course, one of the most detailed descriptions of Valhalla that we have. And here, it just says the same things as it does in the Prose Edda. It details that it was fashioned by the Sons of Ivaldi, and that it was the best of all boats. Then finally, we find the ship mentioned in Ynglinga saga, which is actually thought to be quite an accurate representation of history for the most part, and in here it says that Skidbladnir is Odin's ship, and that it could be folded again so small that it could fit in one's pocket. Anyway, that's it for the attestations. On to the theories. I really haven't read any theories about Skidbladnir and what it represents, so let me know if you guys have any theories. That's why I make these videos, but, you know, in my opinion, it's pretty clear. This is just my opinion, but, you know, the myths all work together, right? The 3 gifts that the gods receive from Brøkker and Sindri, they're all believed to have to do with the formation of our body and soul when we are created. Go see my videos on that if you haven't already. And the gifts from the Sons of Ivaldi, they're received before this. So we're looking for things that are there before our body is formed, the things that are already there. And Skidbladnir represents the womb. It fits perfectly, either the womb or uterus, whatever you want to call it. First, Skidbladnir is Freyr's ship. Freyr is the masculine creative forces of nature, but in the myths it represents the seed. In nature it's seeds, but in humans it's sperm. It's skeet, okay? So Freyr's ship is the carrier of the seed, just like the womb is the carrier of the sperm, of the seed in there. Also, the ship can be big enough to fit all the gods, but it can be small enough to be folded into one's own pocket. So this is just like the womb. It's small enough, so small that you could fit it into one pocket, but also it stretches out to be big enough that it can carry the whole child. or many childs actually, if it's twins or something. So the gods, they are personified in all of us as different parts to our existence. Long subject, it's not that simple, but I'll go into that in another video. But for now, the main gods, at least in the myth, just represent different parts of our own spirit, our own soul, and our life force and things like that. But yeah, as a baby in the womb, the gods are just a part of us. Like Skidbladnir holds all the gods, the womb grows and stretches to be able to hold us, but it can also be small enough to fit into one's own pocket, exactly like the womb when it's not being used. And the original translation of Skidbladnir, meaning leaf-like wood, it could be a metaphor for the womb being strong and sturdy like wood, but also shapeable and flexible like a leaf. What else do the myths say about Skidbladnir? Well, whenever it is time to sail, it always has favorable winds and goes exactly where it needs to go. Just when it's time to give birth, we always go where we need to go, which is out of the mother's puss, you know. And when I kind of started thinking about this theory, I was a little doubtful. Like, no, Skidbladnir can't represent the womb. This is not just a story about birth. The ship Skidbladnir is used many times by Freyr and the gods, and it's not just kind of a one-way ticket out of the mom's, body, But then I realized even my modern mind has a completely skewed view on birth. Today, you're lucky enough to get a woman to want to have 1 or 2 kids. But previously in history, she would have like 15 or 20. So yes, absolutely, Freyr and the gods do go on many trips with Skidbladnir, just like the natural way of humankind is to have many children, just like our bodies have to go, or the womb has to facilitate many journeys outside of the body for each birth. So that's all I'll say. Let me know if you guys have any theories. I'll mention one more thing, maybe something really interesting. The idea of the womb as a ship. This could be the reason that we find so many ship burials in the north. In Scandinavia, more than any other place in the world really, we find people buried in ships. There are dozens, if not hundreds of these. And not only that, archaeologists have also found hundreds of burials with people placed in this fetal-like position. And they think that this represents the belief in reincarnation because it's the same position that a baby is in the mother's womb, so that's why they bury the body this way. So yes, I think it's very possible that these ship burials symbolize the mother's womb as a certain funeral ritual, and possibly, as a ritual that they believed would help them pass quicker and easier through the afterlife and to be reincarnated. I mean, think about it. These ship burials were not exactly an easy thing to do. They had to carry a big fucking ship, sometimes many kilometers from the nearest water, and they would not have done this unless it was really, really important and the dead person had a lot of resources to be able to do this. And that's exactly what it seems like from the other sources, that, these ship burials were reserved for the nobles and royals, because they had the resources to do this. And in the myths, it was actually and sagas, it was actually the nobles and royals who were actually able to figure out who they were in past lives, where the average peasant probably didn't have the resources for that. But that's a subject for another video. That's all I'll say for today. Vi ses nästa gång.